You ever have one of those mornings that feels like any other until it doesn't? Sun was barely up, coffee still hot in my hand, birds doing their usual thing in the trees, and then bang. Just one sharp crack, off in the distance. Not fireworks. Not someone sighting in before deer season. No, this was deliberate, too close, too clean, and before I could even set my mug down, I saw him. Thunder. My bull. Stumbling like someone had kicked his legs out from under him, then slamming to the ground in this heavy, final kind of way that makes your gut turn cold before your brain can catch up. I ran, barefoot, across the dewy grass and knelt beside him, calling his name like it might reverse time. Thunder, come on boy, come on, but I could already see it in his eyes. That confused, fading look, like he didn't understand what had just happened. One more breath, and he was gone. And that's when I saw her. Karen. Standing just outside my fence, holding her damn clipboard like she was inspecting a crack in the sidewalk instead of a dying animal. Behind her were Chad and Mike, dressed like they were on patrol in Fallujah instead of working HOA duty in Central Texas. Chad had his rifle still slung over his shoulder, like this was all part of some weekend warrior fantasy. Karen didn't flinch. Didn't apologize. Just looked me dead in the eye and said, "We had reports of a feral hog in the area. Ordinance 4203, B permits us to take preemptive action in the safety zone." You ever get told your best friend just got murdered, and the killer's trying to invoice you for the bullet? Because that's what it felt like. Let me back up a sec. I wasn't always the bull guy. I used to be an assistant DA. Long hours, ugly cases, politics that left a bad taste in your mouth no matter how the verdict went. After my wife passed, I walked away from it all. Came back to the land I grew up on, 23 acres, rocky and quiet, and I started over. Thunder was my first bull, born on this ranch, raised on my hands. Big, gentle, stubborn as hell. He wasn't just livestock. He was my anchor. And he was also, apparently, a threat to the suburban utopia growing across the street. See, the HOA showed up a few years after Rivergate, but the neighboring property turned it into this eco-modern, a development full of rooftop gardens and Tesla chargers and people who don't know the difference between a bull and a boar. I didn't care at first, let folks live how they want. But then they started sending letters. Your fencing is too rustic. Your animals are visible from the trail. Your livestock emit odors that disrupt the tranquility of neighboring lots. Yeah. Odors. Then came Ordinance 4203, be snuck in at a county zoning meeting with no real notice. It gave HOAs the right to enforce safety standards within 500 feet of their boundary, which, thanks to a suspicious redraw, now included half my pasture. Suddenly, I was getting citations from people who didn't even technically govern me. And every week, like clockwork, I'd get an invitation to reconsider Rivergate's offer to buy my land. Always just low enough to be insulting. Always signed, with appreciation, Gerard Whitmore, Karen's husband. Now you tell me, was Thunder a mistake? Or a message? I buried him that afternoon under the old pecan tree. No tractor. Just a shovel and a promise you're not gonna be the last thing they try to bury out here. That night, I started digging. Not dirt. Documents. Pulled every land record I could find. FOI county emails. Found a paper trail a mile long, HOA funds funneled through shell accounts, campaign donations to Commissioner Halpern, the same guy who greenlit the ordinance, all tied back to Rivergate. Karen's husband was listed as a silent partner on 3 of the LLCs acquiring properties just like mine. I wasn't the first. Pete down the road lost his hens after a noise complaint. Maria's daughter. Her therapy goat disappeared after an anonymous, trespassing report. And just like me, they both got offers to sell just days later. And the kicker? A PowerPoint. Given at a closed HOA meeting, labeled Phase 3 Integration. My parcel. Labeled Critical Acquisition. Next to it, owner non-compliant. Recommend escalation. They shot my bull and called it a business strategy. So I called an old friend at the DOJ. Passed along the docs. The emails. The video I took of Karen literally instructing Chad to put it down if it crosses the fence line again. We waited. Built the case. And when Karen called a community safety meeting, I showed up with more than just receipts. Room was full, board members, investors, even a few local reporters. Karen's up there with a clicker, walking through bullet points about neighborhood optimization. Until slide 12. An aerial map of my land. Highlighted in red. Marked, pending removal. That's when I stood up, not alone. Agent Ramirez from the DOJ walked down the aisle beside me, held up his badge, and said, "Karen Whitmore, you're under investigation for conspiracy to commit fraud, unlawful seizure of property, and targeted harassment." You could have heard a pin drop. Chad reached for his badge, not realizing it didn't mean squat. Mike stood there, frozen, like maybe his brain hadn't caught up. Karen tried to speak something about a misunderstanding, but Ramirez handed her a copy of the email where she literally said, "If Marcus won't sell, we'll force compliance." That was it. Within 48 hours, the HOA was dissolved. Rivergate's assets frozen. Halpan resigned before they could vote on ethics charges. Karen facing federal charges. And me. I went home. Took a bottle of whiskey to the edge of the pasture and sat under the tree with Thunder's marker. Just a slab of stone, nothing fancy, carved with 2 words, still standing. My new bull, Boone, isn't as calm as Thunder yet. He's younger. Wary. But he watches the fence the same way, like he knows peace doesn't mean weakness. Funny thing is, folks around here finally started talking again. Not in whispers. In meetings. Town halls. People like Pete and Maria, they stood up too. Turns out once someone swings first, the rest stop ducking. And Karen. Well, let's just say I hope clipboard privileges aren't available in federal prison. But listen, this wasn't just about a bull. It wasn't even about land. It was about power. About how easily it slips into the hands of people who smile while they strangle you with rules they wrote in private. It's about how quickly safety it becomes a weapon when the wrong people hold the pen. So now I'm asking you, what would you have done? If they killed what you loved, fined you for it, then tried to buy your silence with a handshake. Would you sign? Or would you fight? Drop it in the comments, because if you think this kind of thing only happens in small towns, you're not paying attention.